This week at ABT, we began what I hope becomes a long-standing tradition of getting to know the local community and charity efforts that are going around in the Colorado area. Now, when Ryan Sawtelle of White Heart Foundation reached out last month, he was requesting that we sponsor a table, a donation, or maybe even an ad in their Springs of Gala brochure that they were handing out for the event. Now, I was intrigued enough to start asking a few questions. As I took it to the ABT leadership, who are predominantly vets, they asked that I get more information. So rather than the email chain that goes back and forth with new organizations, I thought this would be a much more interesting way to get to know the players, everyone involved at White Heart Foundation, as well as the purpose and the goals of the Guardian Project. So with that, enter Corporal Jed Morgan of the U.S. Marine Corps. Now, a wonderful human being, tells the story beautifully. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with his story. Well, then let's dive in. So,
All right.
welcome, Corporal Jed Morgan, with the White Heart Foundation. Um, I am super excited to speak with you because I've been going through some of the background history and some of the stories, and you've got an amazing story. So, I was hoping we could start with your story, and you could kind of tell me kind of what brought you here today and how we got to this point.
Sure. Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having me on the show. And yeah, my story, I guess, really started, back in high school, where I first started getting interested in wanting to join the military. And I right out of high school, I started working for a job locally in Colorado Springs for about a year, and then just that desire to go and do some sort of service, whether it's military or law enforcement, was still in the back of my mind, and just got tired of doing what I was doing, wanting to do more with my life, wanting to push myself, and so I went to a Marine recruiter, and asked them about joining, and ended up getting signed up to go and join the Marine Corps, and that was back in 2009. And
What
I
made you choose the Marines, if I might jump in? I know there's 5
yeah,
installations in Colorado Springs, and none of them are Marine installations.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, funny enough, I actually did the ASVAB, which is like the test you have to do before you can join the military. I did it through the Army, and I just kept thinking about it more, and I was like, I really want to challenge myself, and the Marine Corps had the hardest boot camp and everything, and just that image that they portrayed of being this elite fighting force and that kind of thing really stood out to me, and just the confidence that they portrayed, and that was something that was sorely lacking in my life at that time, and I wanted to be able to challenge myself and be able to gain that confidence that I was missing. Um, but yeah, so I joined the Marine Corps, went through boot camp and everything in 2009, and was stationed in 29 Palms, California, with 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, as an infantry rifleman. And yeah, from there, it was just, went through my first deployment was just a Marine Expeditionary Unit, which is you get on a ship and float around a bit, kind of have that maritime portion of the Marine Corps, with in conjunction with the Navy. And so there was a pretty easy, simple deployment, nothing too exciting there. And then from that point, we went to training for a combat deployment to Afghanistan, which we were set to deploy in 2012. We ended up deploying there in the Helmand province of Afghanistan, in a place called Sangin, in May of 2012. And from there, that's kind of the bigger part of my military journey, if you
Right.
will. We were conducting foot patrols mainly. It was a very, and still is a very uh, hot area for the Taliban. Mainly IEDs. That was their main weapon that they utilized over there. And so our mission at that time in the war was just to show the locals an American presence, help them in any way that we could, kind of help them with training their military and their police forces. And so it wasn't necessarily go out and fight like, invasion of Iraq or Afghanistan was. And we were kind of drawing down at that point anyway. But still a lot of Taliban presence. And so we were conducting a foot patrol, as we did many times before, in June 20th of 2012. And we decided after walking around for a few hours to go and um, do some overwatch, which is you get to a higher area and you lay down behind your firearm and you kind of scan an area. And so we decided to go up to this small hill that overlooked a valley down below. There was a roadway in that valley that the Taliban would use oftentimes to bring in weapons and take out drugs. And so we decided, let's go up here, do some overwatch, see if we can see anything on this roadway. And so we get to the top of this small hill, and we all lay down in a circle behind our firearms, and I lay down behind mine, and my foot or my knee hits a pressure plate, which ignites the IED that's implanted in the ground. And I remember just waking up on my back thinking that I was in some really deep sleep, and trying to figure out, how I had fallen asleep that fast. Thinking like, man, I thought we were on a patrol, but I guess we weren't because I'm, sleeping right now and in this weird dream. And then my buddies come rushing over and start putting tourniquets on my legs and arm, and then that's when I realized that I'm not dreaming and had in fact hit an IED. And I was able to see what the damage that was done, and there had immediately taken my left leg off and had shredded my right leg and my right arm, and done some other damage as well that I hadn't known about until later on. My friends, my buddies, they patch me up as best they can, get me on a stretcher, carry me down the hill to a cleared out poppy field, called in a helicopter, and so they're just trying to patch me up as best they can until the helicopter comes. And from there, that's kind of the where my I guess altered life really started, and kind of sent me on this whole path of where I am today, among other things. But
Right.
that really is kind of what led me to where I am today.
So if I take it back just a step,
Mm.
obviously you made it to Walter Reed.
Yep.
They start working on you. Are you when you're in that situation where, I mean, literally everything changes about your life and everything you understand about yourself. What were your thoughts like? What were you thinking you would do? Did you have a plan, or were you just kind of writing it out? I know a lot of people, talk about the different phases they go through in a situation like that. How did you get from there to White Heart?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. And the time I spent in Walter Reed, I was there for about 3 months, and in that time it was just survival. Surgery after surgery for 3 months, and um, I mean they had me on so many pain meds that I don't, a lot of it's just a blur. And it really didn't things didn't really start to smooth out until I was able to go and be transferred to the Naval Medical Center in San Diego, and that's where I started my rehab. So I had the opportunity to get into prosthetics, and I met other amputees and other people that have been injured in war, and being able to hear their stories and take advantage of other opportunities similar to White Heart and the Guardian Project. So that's kind of where I got introduced to that whole side of the nonprofit world. for veterans. Um, but I think that the main thing I tell people that really brought me to working with White Heart and starting the Guardian Project program was actually uh, due to a Marine who was in the same unit that I was in at the medical center, and he was a double amputee as well. Didn't know him extremely well, but we'd see each other, every time we had to do some sort of formation or meet up with the unit. And great guy, great attitude, and I was I had just gotten out of, or I was on my way out of the Marine Corps, getting all my papers finalized for medical retirement, and I was in the process of trying to start a business with a friend of mine that I'd served with. And so we were at SHOT Show convention in Las Vegas, um, and this other Marine happened to be there. He was helping another organization showcase a specialized wheelchair, and we just got to talking, and he had all these aspirations for life. He was helping this organization promote their wheelchairs. He had goals of becoming a Paralympic uh, air rifle marksman and all kinds of things. And he had just a smile on his face the whole time, and left that conversation, just really happy and seeing him do so many things. But then fast forward a couple months, and I'm doing some other training out in New Hampshire, and in one of the afternoons, I get onto Facebook, and I'm scrolling through there, and I see that this particular Marine had killed himself. And it wasn't the first suicide that I had, heard about or witnessed or whatever you might want to say, but I had other Marines that I served with who had committed suicide. But I think it was because I had just so recently talked to him, and he had told me of all these goals and things he had, and just the joy that he had on his face, and then to see just the extreme drastic um, measure that he had gone through to where he would feel that he wanted to kill himself, and I
Mhm.
couldn't understand it. And I knew Ryan from a few years prior. They helped give me a track chair, and so I knew Ryan, and I really liked Whiteheart, and so I called him up and I was like, "Hey Ryan, this happened," and Ryan happened to know the same Marine too, um, and I just I just told him I can't understand this, but there has to be something that can be done to help mitigate this issue because enough's enough. And I was like, how can I start a nonprofit? And he said, that's a terrible idea. There's so much red tape you have to go through. But Whiteheart has been looking to do something just like this, but we need somebody to run it. And that's kind of where it all started. I just told him, well, I'll do it then. And yeah, it's been a journey since 2015 when we first started doing research into it.
Sounds like an awesome journey. So tell me about Whiteheart. How did Whiteheart get started, and what's their mission for everyone who hasn't read up?
Yeah, let's see. Ryan knows more of the specifics on it, but I mean, initially Ryan Sawtelle, he never served. Both his parents served, but he's just got a huge heart for veterans and the military. And he was attending Pepperdine University. He ended up putting for one of his projects, putting a flag on the hillside of Pepperdine for every person who died on 9/11, and he would do motorcycle rides to the base of that school to raise money for various military charity. And he started thinking about those charities and where his money was going. He had no clue um, who those how those organizations were spending the money. And so he wanted to create an organization that was 100% transparent on where people's money was actually going to be used. And so he created the Whiteheart Foundation with the intention of helping severely wounded veterans in need of medical care, medical equipment, things, mainly things that the VA, like specialized care that the VA denied. Um, so, most people think like, oh, vets, it's just super simple. They get whatever. It's not the case all the time. And, many times there's specialized equipment and specialized surgeries and care that the VA will just deny. And
Why is
so,
that? Do you know? I mean, obviously they have their own structure, but what's your sense of why they would deny that kind of treatment?
um, I think a lot of it has to do with just um, regulations that the government has in place for, maybe it's not tested enough to their liking, or there isn't uh, enough people using that sort of equipment or care that they deem as it being actually helpful. That's just kind of what I've seen for a few cases, and but I'm not sure all the ins and outs.
Hmm.
But it's frustrating for a lot of people when there's care that can really help, and they just can't have the VA cover it. And
Right.
so
And
that's
that
where,
process is pretty long
yeah,
too, right?
yeah,
Going
it
through the
can be.
VA. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's where Ryan wanted to really fill that gap. Um, and that was the mission for White Heart for a very long time, was just to try and do the motorcycle rides, but it's 100% of what they raised was given right to one specific veteran and their needs. Um, and so they kind of did that for a number of years.
Do they just how do they pick a veteran every year? Just a singular veteran and go with it? How do they pick the person?
Yeah, it would be either a veteran would come to White Heart and approach White Heart and tell them of a need that they had, or just either even through going to the hospital in San Diego or wherever it might be, and finding out about a veteran who might need specialized care or equipment. So it's pretty small, word of mouth uh, kind of organization for a very long time, and now it's starting to get a little bit bigger, and people are starting to find out about White Art, which is great and really helpful.
So you approach him and talk about a project that you want to start. Was it your intention to make it ecotherapy? And do you want to elaborate on what ecotherapy is and what that looks like when you do go out?
Yeah, I really didn't have a exact idea at first. Um, Really, my main goal is just I want to find out what truly helps people in healing their brain from trauma, um, and really just helps heal them emotionally as well. Um, and so that's where Ryan and I we researched for about a year um, on studies that were done for people that had gone through trauma, people that were dealing with emotional issues, maybe emotional trauma, and what people, these studies found, as the solution to healing, or at least helping as much as possible. Oftentimes there's nothing that can really fully cure anybody from things like PTS or sexual trauma, but how to give them a new sense of purpose, a new way of looking at life, and being able to cope with their traumatic responses in a healthy way. Um, and so the main thing that we found was being out in nature, and with it being tailored towards veterans, um, they're used to high adrenaline activities and just that go 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 mentality. And so we kind of wanted to incorporate both of those, and so that's why it's eco adventure therapy. So the eco side of things, you're out in nature, and then you've got the adventure portion of it. So you've got the whitewater rafting, you've got rock climbing, you've got high ropes courses, that kind of thing. So activities that are, get that adrenaline going in a safe manner.
Hmm.
But then it
You
also,
call it safe.
yeah, yeah, more controlled, I guess, than like combat.
You're right.
Um, but then you've got the teamwork aspect too is huge. So, uh, military is all about teamwork. You're not alone in when you're serving. You're with a family, you're with a brotherhood or sisterhood, and so that teamwork is huge. And
Mhm.
those activities require to work as a team.
Right. And I think, one of the beautiful things about taking people out of their environment and realigning them somewhere in nature where they have to do something together collaboratively, it does kind of break your brain and put you kind of resets you in a really,
Yeah.
I think it's a really healthy way, but I also, would probably get lost out there. So, so what kind of trips do you usually take? So, like, where are these trips? How many vets do you take with you? Where do you go?
Yeah, we do week-long trips currently in Wyoming and Colorado, and the group size is no more than about 10 to 12 veterans. So we keep them small for the purpose of building closeness with
Mhm.
the group. When there's large groups, people tend to break off into their own small group, and we don't we didn't want that to happen. We wanted people to be able to naturally grow together as one group, and um, so the activities are fairly similar on the depending on the location. The whitewater rafting is the same in both. We do rock climbing at both. We typically try to do some horseback riding. Um, we've got high ropes courses in Colorado that we go to, things like that. So um, yeah, we hope to expand different locations, but right now, I mean, those two areas are have just been phenomenal. I mean, it's beautiful country that a lot of people just never have a chance to ever see. So that's a
Yeah.
really special piece too.
How often do you go out?
It kind of depends. This year, um, kind of going through a lot of transitionary things right now, so it's kind of a slower year for us. We're doing 2 trips this summer, but next year we're hoping to do 6 to 8. So yeah, we're definitely growing. We started with 1 trip a year back in 2016, and then kind of grew to 4, and then now we're up to hoping to do 6 to 8. So it's a pretty big growth over the course of time, and it's been phenomenal to see the opportunity to be able to facilitate more and more veterans each year.
Yeah, there's definitely a need. How much does it, just mathematically speaking, how much does it cost typically for each vet to go on one of these trips?
Let's see. I mean, it's it's roughly around 1,500 to 2,000 per veteran. So
Hmm.
it's definitely not a cheap trip, but with we pay for everything too. We fly them out. We pay for guides. We pay for the activities, the food, the lodging, everything. So that's a big thing too. We don't want veterans to feel like anything has to come out of their pocket financially. So we strive really hard to be able to cover everything on our end. So it's just very simple and easy for them to come out.
Hmm. That's awesome. That's really amazing. And then, so while you're on these trips, obviously there's a lot of connection between the group. But what do you see as vets re-enter and go back home and go back into their lives? Are you guys all staying in touch? Is there a lot of rejoining into the nonprofit? How is that working with the vets after?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. With a lot of organizations, they offer great trips and a lot of fun things, fun activities. But the one thing we saw a lot was a veteran would go on a fun fishing trip or hunting trip or whatever it might be, um, and then you're sent back home and you never hear from that organization again. We really wanted it to be a family dynamic, and that's what we really try to instill from the very first day on the trip. Is you're not just coming on a trip and you're going to be forgotten about when you go home. You're part of a family now. You're part of the White Heart family. We're going to keep track of you. We're going to check in with you. We're going to invite you out to different opportunities. So we try to, gather veterans that have gone on the trip, the alumni, and have, give them an opportunity to help follow up with veterans, that kind of thing. So we reach out to them on a pretty regular basis without getting annoying. And then we invite them back to trips. So especially if they're going through a difficult time, like we've always opened it up to, if you're going through a tough time and you need another getaway or another reset, we try to put them into a trip again.
Mhm.
We also have reunion trips that we offer. So, we're trying to get a space that's really conducive for it. But we've done where we invite veterans out to the Ride of the Flags event in California, so they can come and reunite with people they went on the trips with before, and meet new veterans. And so there's lots of different opportunities like that where we try to just keep them engaged and offer them opportunities to come back as mentors as well. So if they're interested in helping teach and be there for new veterans on trips, then that's an amazing opportunity for them to kind of give back and feel like they have a new purpose.
Mhm. What kind of support do you feel like you're getting from the community on all of your projects?
Um, yeah, I mean, let's see, the first trips we ever did was in Lander, Wyoming, and that community just really opened up its doors big time with what we're doing. And it continues to grow each year. So we do a dinner banquet out in Lander, Wyoming every year, and you just see business owners and the community coming out to this event and supporting what we do, donating meals to the veterans on the trips, and same thing in Buena Vista, Colorado. And now we've got this gala in Colorado Springs coming up, and just seeing a lot of support from local businesses and just the community in general.
Mhm.
They're very interested in supporting a nonprofit that they can trust 100% of what they give is going to what we say it's going to. And that speaks a lot to them. And so we've seen a lot of community support over the years.
That's great. That's great. I really think, and it's kind of an evolving thought process, but I feel like, there's this misconception that the military should always take care of the vets. And I think that the gap might be that maybe, really it isn't that. Maybe it is the community, and the community should come forward and do a lot more to help and support and appreciate, because thank you. You've done an amazing job, and the things that we take for granted, having never served, that should be paid back tenfold over and over and over again. So I appreciate that a lot. So before I
Thank
digress, because I'll go in a totally different direction with that, but the Springs of Hope Gala is coming up on May 20th, right at the Boot Barn. Did I read that right? The
Yeah, Boot Barn Hall. Yep.
Boot Barn Hall. Um, as far as getting tickets and donating and doing all the right things to help support that, should we just go to the website, and I'll put all the links down below too, but the website, is there any other way that you would like to see people get involved and get engaged?
Yeah, I think yeah, if you want tickets, absolutely go onto the website. If you can't give, but maybe you have auction items or something like that, that's definitely something that people can reach out about.
What kind of things are
And
you looking for? Do you have a wish list, or does the team have a wish list of things that they'd like?
I mean, not necessarily. I know Ryan is kind of leading that charge more than I am, so he probably has a better idea. But really, just you know, items that are probably higher in value, that are going to be able to hopefully raise more money. Obviously, is
Hmm.
definitely helpful. Um, things that are interesting to kind of the military community. That's Colorado Springs is, like you mentioned earlier, a hub for military. So those kind of items are always great to have. um, but yeah, and then another way too is just local businesses in Colorado Springs, um, that might be interested in sponsoring the event.
Hmm.
That's a huge thing. Being able to, um, put your business on the list of, like, hey, we've helped the Guardian Project and White Heart Foundation. That'll speak a lot, and so we're always, we're trying to find as many businesses that would be interested in helping sponsor this event. So that's a huge thing for us too.
Yeah, definitely. That's how we actually got connected. Was Ryan
Yeah.
reached out, and I went to my CFO, who's a vet, and the president of our company, who's a vet, and I was like, "So, do we want to help him?" And they were like, "Well, find out some more information." And I thought, well, let's do it the fun way instead of instead of the
Oh yeah.
emails back and forth. Let's sit down and let's talk about it and let's figure out what we can really do and really kind of get some more attention to it because I think that is fun too. And anything that we
That's
can do
cool.
to help support, I think, is good. And it is a great community in the Springs. There's a lot of vet focused businesses that I think would like to step up and get involved, and hopefully they do.
Yeah,
Where would
absolutely.
you like to see where would you like to see the organization go in the next few years?
uh let's see, I mean, continued growth with being able to do more trips. Definitely. One thing I'd like to see is the ability to be able to offer um, trips for not just veterans, but their spouses and maybe even their kids as well. Because it's not just the veteran that goes through the PTS, or you know that kind of thing, the stress and the trauma. The whole family does. So it really bleeds into the spouse, the children. It affects everybody. So being able to have shorter trips that the whole family can come to, and be able to get classes, even for the children. Get classes on when mom or dad are going through these these difficulties, or these emotional feelings are coming up. Um, why do they have that? And have like real authentic conversations with the kids and with the spouses, and help them to understand what's going on, and then also help them to be able to healthily cope with their trauma that is a result of the veterans' trauma too. So that secondary PTSD kind of thing is a real thing, and it's very, very overlooked, I think. So that's a big area that I would really love to see growing.
That's amazing. Yeah, I agree with that entirely. I think little kids understand more than they're given credit for, but they don't understand enough if you don't tell them. So getting them
True.
involved and getting them through the trauma that doesn't, stops the generational trauma too, which is, I think, important.
Very true. Yep.
Awesome. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have?
Oh man. I can't think of anything. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today. I think, it's been fun for me. I could quiz you and grill you about stories and get some more stories from you, but rather than harass you, I think maybe we'll call it there and see if we can get some more businesses involved, but get some more people aware of and interested in and at least donating to White Heart. And so whiteheart.org is where we can find all the details, right? And
Yep.
then there, I believe it's slash gala. You can get all the information about the gala that's coming up on the 20th and how to get involved and things like that too, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Jed,
Yeah.
it's been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate this. It's been great.